The top stories tonight in Y News. COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna could be ready for United States authorization and distribution within weeks.
President Rodrigo Duterte agrees to pay for potential COVID-19 vaccines in advance to ensure the country's supply.
Marikina City evacuee tested positive for coronavirus disease. A dam expert reiterates the importance of creating a national dam safety program in the country.
Senator Panfilo Lacson bears billions of funds allocated to congressional districts for
And a new study suggests COVID-19 immunity could last for at least 8 months. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Thursday, November 19, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through our website, UNTVweb.com, and our social media accounts. I am William Theo.
First in the news, COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer Inc. and Moderna Incorporated could be ready for U.S. authorization and distribution within weeks, setting the stage for inoculation to begin as soon as this year. Marvy Delfin will give us the details live. Yes, Marvy.
Harleen, American citizens and residents could have access to Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines by the end of the year, according to U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar. During his briefing on the government's Operation Warp Speed program for COVID-19 vaccines on Wednesday, Azar said, "We now have 2 safe and highly effective vaccines that could be authorized by the FDA and ready to distribute within weeks." Azar further stated that initial vaccinations could begin as soon as next month. Around 40 million doses of the 2 vaccines, both of which require 2 shots 28 days apart, will be available by the end of the year, and the companies will be able to produce more than 40 million doses a month for Americans every month thereafter. The officials added states and territories are prepared to begin distributing the vaccines within 24 hours of receiving regulatory authorization. The remarks came just hours after Pfizer revealed that it would apply for emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, this week, after final results from its late-stage trial showed the vaccine was safe and 95% effective. While rival U.S. company Moderna on Monday released preliminary data showing its own vaccine was 94.5% effective. Operation Warp Speed officials said the Moderna vaccine is likely to be authorized within 7 to 10 days of Pfizer receiving emergency use authorization. Full formal approval is likely to follow in about 3 months. Harleen?
Marvy, will there be some form of rules on who gets what vaccine and who will receive the first shots?
Harleen, according to COVID-19 vaccine program head Monsef Slawi, there will not be any constraints on who gets what vaccine. He said government officials and private companies are ready to distribute the vaccines to all parts of the country, while the first shots will be offered to vulnerable groups like medical and nursing home workers and people with serious health conditions. An expert panel advising the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, is meeting next week to determine the order of priority for vaccine distribution. Harleen?
All right, Marvy, thank you for that live report. President Rodrigo Duterte has approved the recommendation to make advance payments to suppliers of potential vaccines for coronavirus disease 2019. Meanwhile, the president will soon release an executive order allowing the Food and Drug Administration to grant emergency use authorization to coronavirus vaccines that will enter the country. Rosalie Cons explains why.
President Rodrigo Duterte agreed to enter into advance market commitments to avoid being among the last countries to acquire the COVID-19 vaccine. The president initially was against having to pay pharmaceutical companies to reserve vaccines in advance. According to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, the president changed his mind and approved the recommendation of the National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez to advance supply agreements and make early payments to COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers.
So medyo pumayag na po tayo na magkakaroon po tayo ng advance. Kasi kapag hindi po tayo pumayag, baka makulela tayo dun sa mga bansa na makakakuha ng vaccine. So alam ko po, nung una ayaw ni Presidente yan, importanteng masiguro na meron po tayong bakuna, pumayag na po siya nung mga tinatawag na advance payments.
According to Secretary Galvez, the Philippines has been negotiating with China, United Kingdom, Singapore, and US on potential COVID-19 vaccine. Once advance payments are made to vaccine developers, the commitment with 2 to 3 pharmaceutical companies will be made this month of November. This translates to 30 to 50 million vaccines to be funded by various financing modes.
Pagka nakakuha po natin ito, pagka nagkaroon po tayo ng advance commitment this coming November, ang ano po namin, target po namin before the end of November, 2 o 3 kumpanya ang pakuha po natin.
Meanwhile, an executive order will be issued by the President for the emergency use authorization of the COVID-19 vaccine. Roque said it would speed up the process of allowing the use of vaccines with FDA approval from countries they were developed in.
Kung mapipirmahan po itong executive order neto, abay, 21 araw na lang po magagamit na rin natin sa Pilipinas.
Rosalie Coz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Has confirmed the coronavirus case in an evacuation center for typhoon victims. And to prevent the further spread of the disease, the city government has conducted rapid testing for the evacuees. Dante Amento will give us more details live. Dante, what is the profile of the COVID-19 positive evacuee? And have the officials traced all the close contacts of the positive patient?
Yes, Diego, a 68-year-old male evacuee in Marikina City has tested positive for coronavirus disease, as thousands still remain at the city's evacuation centers following the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. But Marikina City Mayor Marcy Teodoro says the asymptomatic patient is now on quarantine and in stable condition. According to Teodoro, all members of the patient's family as well as the 13 people he had close contact with have all tested negative for COVID-19 in the swab testing. This local chief executive clarifies the patient did not contracted the disease in the evacuation center.
Galing hospital, nakuha yung COVID hospital, hindi sa evacuation center. Yung 4 membro ng pamilya niya, negative lahat. Yung 13 na individuals, may contact niya, negative lahat.
Earlier, the city government rolled out a rapid testing for COVID-19 in the evacuation centers. Some 190 contact tracers have already been deployed to evacuation centers to boost the contact tracing efforts of the local government.
Protocol naman sa mga evacuation area na may testing Saka may mga health declaration, may mga thermal scanning.
Currently, more than 16,000 individuals remain in the evacuation centers. Diego, based on the latest data from the Marikina Public Information Office, there are now 3,242 total confirmed COVID-19 cases in the city, with 183 active cases. 60 deaths from the infection were recorded with almost 3,000 recoveries. And that's the latest. Back to you, Jet.
Thank you, Dante Amento, for that live report. As residents in Cagayan are trying to go back to normal following the massive flooding, several typhoon victims in the town of Alcala are trying to salvage their farmlands for the sake of their families. Joan Nano tells us why.
Alcala town is one of the most hit area in the recent massive flooding in Cagayan province. Several farmers were disappointed as most of their farmlands were damaged by the intense flood water. Many sacks of rice grains that was supposed to be sold to the rice miller have submerged in the flood, so they are trying to dry it up to sell it even on a lower price. Prices of palay in Cagayan are being sold at 17 to 18 pesos per kilo. However, since it was wet and damaged, it can only be sold at 5 to 10 pesos per kilo. But some farmers opt to consume the rice grains as most of it cannot be sold already.
Susubukan namin, ma'am, kung pwede, di okay lang. Kung hindi, pakain ng manok. Talaga, ma'am, sobrang lugi ang farmers dito kasi marami pang hindi na-harvest ngayon.
Subukan namin bilad ng ibilad hanggang sa matuyo siya ng mabuti. Tapos pag-iskis namin kung pwede pang makain.
Aside from rice grains, huge farms of corns were also destructed by the floods.
Wala kaming kikitain kundi masira lahat. Siyempre puro utang ang kon namin, ma'am. Lahat utang.
Meanwhile, more than 100 families in Bagao, Cagayan were forced evacuated due to another threat of a landslide.
Meron po tayo ditong malaking portion ng bundok po na kung saan po ay nakakakitaan na po ng malalaking cracking at meron na pong pagguho from time to time. That's why yung mga bahay po na nakatira, di na nakatayo dito sa main foot po niya ay binigyan na po natin ng forced evacuation order.
Evacuees were brought to the nearest school that will serve as their temporary shelter, as the local government is trying to find a place for their relocation. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, a Filipino dam expert based in the United States urges the Duterte government to establish a dam safety program in the wake of the massive flooding in Luzon. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
Filipino dam expert engineer Roderick de la Cruz sees the need for the Philippines to craft a national dam safety program. This is to ensure the integrity of the dams in the country and the safety of the community downstream. De la Cruz is now based in US working with Southern California Edison, managing more than 80 dams. He is a native of Hagone, Bulacan, a balik scientist, and also a presidential awardee during the term of former President Benigno Aquino III. Almost 10 years ago, when he proposed the creation of the program after the country, especially his hometown, experienced floods aggravated by the release of water from Angat Dam. De la Cruz also noted that a regulatory agency should supervise the dam in the country. He emphasized that dams are riskier than nuclear power plant.
And I compared risk ng dam kumpara sa risk ng Bataan nuclear plant. Para mabigyan kasi ng perspective ang mga tao na sa aking pananaw mas malaki ang risk ng dam kaysa sa nuclear plant, but ang question niya is bakit natin pinayagang hindi operate ang Bataan nuclear plant because of our concern, and yet we continue to operate a lot of these major dams na hindi natin naintindihan talaga kung ano ang magiging consequences kung sakasakaling bumigay ang dam.
De la Cruz considers all major dams in the country as high risk because of the threat it poses to the community downstream, so it should be monitored strictly. His company, for example, is a private that operates dams but still follow regulation from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Kung nasa US yung mga major dams diyan, they are all classified high hazard dams, and there needs to be a strict requirement and regulation for the safety and continuous operation of those dams.
De la Cruz wants to share his expertise in the Philippines. A regular assessment and maintenance should also be implemented to avoid damage. Among the major dams in the country, La Mesa is the oldest dam, created in 1929, while San Roque is the youngest. Angat Dam started operation in 1967, while Magat Dam was in 1983. He noted that dam protocols should also be revisited because of the changing climate and environment in the area.
Ang isa kong concern, maaari kasing ang protocol na na-establish long time ago, maaaring hindi na ngayon applicable. Dahil ang downstream impact mo ay nabago na.
In 2011, then Bulacan 1st District Representative Victoria C. Alvarado filed a bill that will create the National Dam Safety Program and establish the National Dam Safety Authority, but it was pended in the committee. Ray Pilayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
More police, disaster response personnel, and resources have been rushed to Cagayan, where a government-wide effort is underway to provide relief assistance to communities badly affected by heavy flooding triggered by the typhoon. Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
The Philippine National Police continues to provide rescue and relief operations in Cagayan Valley, which was badly ravaged by Typhoon Ulysses. 5 trucks containing relief goods from Camp Crame are now traveling to Cagayan. Police Community Affairs and Development Group Chief of Staff Police Colonel Rogelio Simon says the trucks contain sacks of rice, boxes of noodles, mineral waters, sugar, face masks, face shield, blankets, raincoats, used clothes, searchlight and search and rescue vest. 1,000 relief packs with canned goods will also be distributed to affected families. The donations are traveled through land and air using the PNP's equipment and resources. PNP spokesperson, Police Brigadier General Ildebrandi Osana said, aside from the donations in Camp Crame, police regional offices are also sending help for Cagayan.
Kasabay-sabay yan halos, meron pang sa Region 3, ang Regional Director, si Police Brigadier General Val de Leon, ay nakahanda na rin para i-distribute yung kanilang relief goods. So in other words, meron po tayong concerted efforts to maintain yung pag-distribute ng mga relief goods sa ating mga kababayan doon po sa Cagayan Valley.
Osana adds police personnel also raise funds to support the initiative.
Meron po tayong ina-allocate na specific funds for that. At good enough yung ating mga different chiefs of police, pati yung mga provincial directors, nag-allocate din po ng kanya-kanyang mga suporta.
Aside from Cagayan, the National Police Force are also sending help for typhoon-affected residents in the Bicol region. Leah Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
The Department of Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade assures that the government has a plan to prevent a repeat of the massive flooding in the Cagayan Valley region. This is through dredging and tree planting. Aiko Miguel explains why.
Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade met with local officials of Claveria, Cagayan and immediately presented the government's plans to affected municipalities of Cagayan. Secretary Tugade pointed out the continuous dredging of the Cagayan River and the reforestation efforts in the area as being integral in preventing deadly floods.
Pati si Mayor President Duterte, sabi niya, walang illegal logging. Ayan, sakit ng ulo natin yan. Ang ginagawa pa ng iba, magpuputol. Tapos iiwan sa kabundukan. Pag dumating ang bagyo, nahuhulog. Kaya nakakasakit, nakakamatay.
The transportation chief said an order will be issued requiring all who will get a permit or license in the DOTR agencies will need to plant trees. The local government units will then identify the areas of the tree planting.
Yung LTO, LTFRB, yung Coast Guard, yung PPA, yung Marina. In other words, hindi lang registration fee. Kailangan meron ding social consciousness compensation. Part of that is planting trees at the areas designated by the local government and by the DNR as the plantable areas.
According to the local government unit of Claveria, Cagayan, they will issue an ordinance to immediately implement it.
Gagawa kami ng ordinansa, enactment of ordinance, na lahat ng nagpa-franchise at saka pwedeng yung mga kukuha ng business permit, gagawin din namin silang magtatanim ng kahoy.
The local officials are still investigating reported illegal logging activities in the mountains of Cagayan. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Damages to agriculture and infrastructure brought by Typhoon Ulysses have reached 10 billion pesos, according to newly released estimates from the country's disaster management agency. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why live. Yes, Vincent, good evening.
William, several days after Typhoon Ulysses battered Luzon, the damage caused by Typhoon Ulysses has also risen. According to NDRRMC, the damage to agriculture in Luzon brought by Typhoon Ulysses has reached 4 billion pesos, while infrastructure damage has reached around 6.1 billion pesos. 201 road sections and 72 bridges have also been cleared and is now passable according to the NDRRMC. Casualties also remain at 73 dead, 24 injured, and 19 still missing. Meanwhile, the NDRRMC also defended the move of the National Irrigation Administration in opening the spillway gates of Magat Dam. According to NDRRMC spokesperson Peter Paul Galvez, NIA followed the protocol.
This is really to prevent breakage of the dam. They followed protocols and they were able to also give ample issuance to the regional RDRMCs.
The NDRRMC also said that majority of the water that flows through the Cagayan River comes from other tributaries than Magat Dam.
Majority of the water that is in the Cagayan River comes from the other tributaries. There are approximately 20 tributaries, 20 main tributaries, and Magat Dam is just 15% of that entire source of water in the Cagayan River.
William, the opening of spillway gates of the Magat Dam is being thought to be one of the reasons for the intense flooding in Cagayan and Isabela. That's the latest live. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Vincent Arboleda reporting live.
Malacanang says there is no need for President Rodrigo Duterte to ask for an apology despite his recent tirades against Vice President Leni Robredo. Rosalie Cos explains why.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque stands firm that there's nothing wrong with what President Rodrigo Duterte had said against Vice President Leni Robredo. Roque adds it is not the president who said that Robredo used the C-130 plane of the military when she went to Bicol for relief operations.
Di naman sinabi ni Presidente na pinalabas niya ng ilaman ng C-130 dala-dala ni VP Leni. Bakit siya maghihingi ng abiso? Humingi na ng abiso yung mga nagsabi noon. Dapat silang humingi kung sila yung nagkamali dahil sila ang nagkamali pero hindi po ang presidente. Bakit naman hihingi ng abiso ang presidente na wala siyang pagkakamali?
The palace official reiterates the president has always a basis in his tirades against the vice president, especially the malicious questioning of the president's whereabouts during the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. The palace official also shows the messages of VP Leni and her daughters on their social media platforms, which he believes are the basis of the outburst of the president. Despite the incidents, the administration still appeals to stop politicking as the country still has to deal with the health crisis and destruction of the recent typhoons.
My advice to VP Leni, tigil muna ang politika sa panahon ng pandemya, sa panahon ng mga sunod-sunod na aberya gaya ng mga bagyo. Si Presidente po yan ang paninindigan. Kung hindi naman lumabas yung mga issue na ganyan, na nasaan si Presidente, wala namang po sinasabing masama ang Presidente kay VP Leni. Meron ba ho? Wala.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Commission on Appointments finally confirms the ad interim appointment of Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development Secretary Eduardo Del Rosario. He is the first secretary of the department after it was created in 2019. Del Rosario's confirmation was deferred 3 times before getting the commission's nod. As he faced the bicameral panel earlier today, Del Rosario was asked on the department's plans for the victims of the recent typhoons. The new House-in-Chief said they have already identified safe areas for the relocation of affected families, and coordination with local government units is ongoing. He also denied reports that the death toll during Typhoon Yolanda in 2013 was downgraded.
It's accurate in as far as we are concerned. There was no instruction to downgrade the number of casualties because when I was interviewed during my stint as the Executive Director of NDRRMC, I said I am ready to resign if this can be proven because there was no instruction to that effect.
Del Rosario also attended the Senate plenary deliberations on the Housing Department's proposed 5.4 billion peso budget. Senators appealed to the new House-in-Chief to fast-track the rehabilitation of the most affected area of Marawi City. The Housing Department targets to complete the infrastructure rehabilitation in December 2021.
Yesterday's plenary debates wrapped up early Thursday morning, which ended with the proposed budget of the Department of Public Works and Highways. There, Senator Panfilo Lacson questioned the billions of pesos of funds allocated to 227 congressional districts for infrastructure projects under the House version of the proposed national budget. These districts got no less than 1 billion pesos and as much as 15 billion pesos, while the other districts got millions, with over 600 million pesos as the lowest.
Our source here is the House of Representatives itself, and according to our sources, they had a hand in the preparation of this list. So I'm not blaming the department when it appears this way because practically mga congressmen po ang may gawa ng listahan na ito.
According to Lacson, he chose not to name the districts and its congressmen as he wants to focus on the issue. But during the deliberations last week, Lacson already cited some areas with huge allocations, such as an urban district in Davao City that got 15.3 billion pesos. The House leadership has yet to comment on the matter, but Speaker Lord Alan Velasco earlier assured the public that there is no pork in the 2021 national budget. The senator also hit the funding of unfinished multi-purpose buildings amounting to 68 billion pesos, which he referred to as skeleton projects. Aside from this, Lacson also questioned some double appropriations and overlapping items in the budget bill. According to Senate Finance Committee Chair Sonny Angara, who sponsored the DPWH budget in the plenary, DPWH Secretary Mark Villar will submit a detailed explanation and sectioning on the budget. Despite this, Lacson believes Secretary Villar has nothing to do with corruption.
I agree with President Duterte, albeit not completely, that Secretary Villar is not corrupt. Not because he is rich, but because he is not corrupt, period.
A measure seeking to modernize, professionalize, and improve the compensation of officials and personnel of the Bureau of Immigration, or BI, has hurdled committee level at the House of Representatives. The House Committee on Appropriations approved on Wednesday a substitute bill on the proposed BI Modernization Act, which is among the priority measures identified by President Rodrigo Duterte. Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez, one of the authors of the measure, said the proposal would replace the 1940 immigration law known as Commonwealth Act No. 613. The bill defines the powers and functions of the Immigration Bureau, its commissioner, 2 deputy commissioners, and other officials and directorates and offices under it. It also upgrades the salaries of BI officers and personnel. He noted that although changes in the 1940 law had been made in the past, the statute has ceased to be responsive to present-day conditions and realities. Rodriguez said, aside from the Pastilla scam that protected mostly illegal Chinese nationals, many aliens in the country have been involved in various crimes, including kidnapping, smuggling, human trafficking, labor recruitment, and terrorism.
For those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
The Food and Drug Administration identifies 5 unregistered face mask brands that are sold in the market. The agency also advises healthcare professionals and the general public not to purchase unnotified face masks. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why.
The Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, recently released advisories against 5 brands of face masks that are notified medical device products. FDA Director General Undersecretary Eric Domingo explains that face masks being used in regular non-medical daily activities do not require registration from FDA. But if it is used for medical purposes, especially in hospitals, as a protection from contagious diseases like COVID-19, the product needs to be tested and approved by the FDA.
So mga ito nakita natin na binibenta sila as medical masks, pero hindi sila registered sa FDA at hindi natin na-test at hindi natin nakita kung talagang magpe-perform sila ng sa level ng kailangan para maprotektahan ang mga gumagamit nito.
Based on Republic Act 9711 or the Food and Drug Administration Act of 2009, it is prohibited to manufacture, import, export, sell, distribute, and promote or advertise such products. According to FDA, these products are rampantly being sold online, and the agency has been continuously communicating with the leading electronic or e-commerce and online sellers to tell them not to sell any medicine or medical devices that have medical grade. The FDA, however, warns all healthcare professionals as well as the general public not to purchase the said product.
Kasi kung titignan mo siya, para siyang medical, di ba? Medical supplies ang pagka-present sa kanya. Ang unang-unang wina-warningan natin dyan ay yung mga ospital, yung mga clinic, di ba? Yung mga doctors, mga barangay health center. Huwag po kayong bibili niyan. Kahit na mukha siyang medical mask, hindi po natin sigurado yan dahil hindi po yan na-test ng FDA.
The FDA advises consumers to check the medical device product they are buying by finding the FDA notification number in the product label. FDA-approved products are also listed on the FDA's website. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health, or DOH, reported 1,337 new confirmed COVID-19 cases on Thursday, as the daily figure remained below 2,000 for 10 days already. The total number of confirmed cases in the country is at 413,430, of which 30,493 are active cases, the DOH latest case report showed. It also reported that 286 more patients recovered, raising the total number to 374,939. However, the death toll jumped to 7,998 after 41 more patients died. Davao City logged the highest number of newly infected residents with 110, followed by Laguna with 74, Quezon City with 66, Batangas with 54, and the city of Manila with 53. The DOH said that it is closely monitoring the COVID-19 situation in Davao City after it was tagged as a hotspot of serious concern by experts from Octa Research Team.
The group Octa Research has recommended safety measures for 9 local government units or LGUs in the country that are considered as high-risk areas for the coronavirus disease. Let's find out from Asher Kadapan Jr. live. Yes, Asher, good evening.
Well, good evening. The UP Octa Research recently released a study that shows 9 local government units with high risk of COVID-19 infection. These include cities of Baguio, Makati, Davao, the municipalities of La Trinidad and Itogon in Benguet, Batangas City, Lucena City and Lopez in Quezon Province, and Pagadian City in Zamboanga del Sur.
Mataas yung several indicators nila. They have a lot of cases. They have a high attack rate, which means yung cases relative to the population is also high. So you see mataas yung risk of infection in those areas. And also yung hospital occupancy nila is very high.
Two of the said areas are considered hotspots of serious concerns with a very high data on the COVID-19 risk indicators. They in turn affect their neighboring areas like in Baguio City, where adjacent towns, particularly La Trinidad and Itogon, both in Benguet, have also been tagged as high risk for the disease. Davao City, on the other hand, put its neighbor, Pagadian City in Zamboanga del Sur, in the list of high-risk areas. Despite the high risk, the group of experts observe a continuous decrease in the data against COVID-19. To help with the fight against the pandemic, the UP-Octa research recommends some measures to LGUs, including increased capacity for testing, contact tracing, and isolation. But the group emphasized the need to intensify the implementation of the minimum health standards.
Maybe stricter adherence to health standards, yung wearing a face mask, face shield, and personal hygiene. Those are always important. Yun actually pinaka-important eh.
Those are the reasons we have for tonight, Will.
Okay, thank you very much, Asher Kadapan Jr. for that live report. And for the news abroad, here's Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia.
Good evening, William. Public schools in New York City will close again after the city reached a 3% COVID test positivity rate. Earl Briones will tell us why live. Yes, Earl, good evening.
Marielle, 250,029 COVID-19 related deaths have been recorded in the U.S., according to the latest data published by Johns Hopkins University, an average of 1,155 deaths daily. The new confirmed cases in the last 2 weeks have also risen to more than 80%, with an average of daily new COVID-19 infections of close to 160,000. All public schools in New York City have been shut, and 1 million students are expected to shift from in-person learning to distance learning starting from Thursday this week. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said it was a sad decision, but all schools need to meet all safety standards before taking on face-to-face classes. New York City joins other large school districts in the cities like Boston and Detroit. Texas is rushing thousands of medical staff to relieve weary frontliners and to support overworked hospital workers as Texas rapidly accelerates toward 8,000 hospitalized patients. Meanwhile, recognizing that people are experiencing COVID fatigue, Dr. Anthony Fauci continued to encourage people to follow public health measures such as wearing face coverings, physical distancing, and avoiding crowded places. Marielle?
All right, thank you, Earl Briones, reporting live. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration had approved the first COVID-19 self-testing kit for home use that provide results within 30 minutes. Lena Ramos will tell us why.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, has issued an emergency use authorization for the Lucira COVID-19 all-in-one test kit for prescription use only. The single-use diagnostic tests allow for self-collection at home using nasal swab samples in individuals ages 14 and older who are suspected by a healthcare provider of COVID-19. The kit can also be used in point-of-care settings such as doctors' offices, hospitals, urgent care centers, and emergency rooms for all ages. Results can be obtained in 30 minutes or less. In a statement, FDA Commissioner Stephen M. Hahn said that this is the first test that can be fully self-administered and provide results at home, which is an important diagnostic advancement to address the pandemic and reduce the public burden of disease transmission. This comes as a string of good news from vaccine developers, Moderna Incorporated and Pfizer Incorporated, on their potential vaccine against COVID-19. COVID-19 had claimed at least 250,016 lives in the United States, which has documented about 11.5 million infections since the pandemic emerged. Right now, the country has the highest COVID-19 cases and death toll in the world. Lena Ramos, UNTV News and Rescue, USA. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Lockdowns are being proposed in targeted areas in Malaysia as the country struggles to slow down COVID-19 infections. Maya Barquez will tell us why.
Following Malaysia's ongoing partial lockdowns, which lasted for the past 1 month, public health experts said it is not the answer since it has failed to bring down the daily infections. A total of over 1,000 daily infections in the past 2 weeks, including the highest recorded of 1,775 daily cases on November 6th, where Kuala Lumpur alone recorded 475 cases on November 15 at a construction site. Health Chief Nur Hisham Abdullah said the Conditional Movement Control Order, or CMCO, might take longer to break the chain of infection compared to a stricter lockdown. Malaysian Public Health Physicians Association President Zainal Arifin Omar said that not MCO, not CMCO, but enhanced MCO with targeted lockdowns in very specific locations and premises. At the same time, increased testing and isolation could decrease the number of infections. Currently under the CMCO, which now affects 9 of Malaysia's 13 states and all 3 federal territories, Kuala Lumpur, Putrajaya and Labuan, the public can still travel within the state but cannot cross state borders except for work and emergencies. Mass gatherings are banned and only 3 people are allowed to travel in the same vehicle. Yesterday, another above 1,000 cases with 1,103 new cases, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 48,520. Meanwhile, Malaysia's Science, Technology and Innovation Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said that Malaysia is already in talks to at least 8 producers of the COVID-19 vaccine. Maya Barquez, UNTV News and Rescue, Malaysia. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, on Wednesday midnight, South Australia has begun its 6-day statewide lockdown. This means people are restricted from going outside their homes, allowing only 1 person per household to leave each day, but only for specific purposes. Masks are required to be worn in all areas outside the homes, and all schools, universities, takeaway food, pubs, and cafes were closed, as well as factories that do not involve the production of medical and food products. The construction industry, which has been permitted to operate during the previous lockdowns in Australia, have also been halted. Furthermore, weddings and funerals are banned along with open real estate auctions. Outdoor exercises are also prohibited. In addition to these, nursing homes and disability residential facilities were also locked down due to increased vulnerability to the coronavirus. Regional flights have also been cancelled, which affected those who work as FIFO or fly-in, fly-out. The lockdown was implemented due to a highly contagious coronavirus outbreak that officials linked to a returned traveler from the United Kingdom. According to authorities, the emergence of the cluster was said to have started after a cleaner from a hotel contracted the virus from the quarantined returned traveler. The cleaner then spread the infection to her extended family in Adelaide. Authorities state that this emergence represented the first serious signs of community transmission in South Australia since mid-April. A research found that most people who have been infected with coronavirus develops immunity that could last for at least 8 months and could offer some form of natural protection for a number of years. Ia De Vera explains to us why live. Yes, Ia, go ahead.
Mariel, scientists at La Jolla Institute in California found that 8 months after getting infected of the coronavirus, most people develop strong levels of immune cells that stays in the body to fight the virus and to prevent another round of infection. The research team gathered 185 COVID-19 cases, men and women, aged 19 to 81, who had tested positive but now recovered from virus infection. Most of the cases only had mild symptoms and not required to be hospitalized. Blood samples were collected once, but 38 participants needed to provide multiple samples over months. Researchers track components of the immune system and has different roles in the body. These are antibodies, B cells, and T cells. Based on the analysis, immunoglobulin G, which is a type of antibody, stays in the body between 6 and 8 months with modest declines after infection and suggests this could linger for a number of years. Meanwhile, T cells show a slow decay in the body, while B cells, which is responsible for production of pathogen-specific antibodies, unexpectedly grew in number. These immune cells have important roles in remembering the virus and preventing serious illnesses when a person is re-exposed to the pathogen. The research was posted online and has not been peer-reviewed. However, it is the most comprehensive and long-ranging study of immunity to date. The La Jolla Institute research confirms that long-term protection against the virus is not only dependent on antibody responses, but is driven by the virus components of the immune system. Shane Crotty, the virologist at the La Jolla Institute for Immunology, who co-led the research, said that the amount of memory would likely prevent the vast majority of people from getting hospitalized severe disease for many years. Marielle?
All right, that is Ia de Vera from New Zealand. And those are the reasons behind the news here in Australia and in other parts of the globe. For those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
Thank you, Maria Latoza, live from Perth, Australia.
And those are the reasons behind the news, November 19, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.